The story begins in the kingdom of Helmuth. Vermouth and his 4 comrades have destroyed everything. Their objectives are to defeat all the demon kings. At the moment they have already defeated 3. The other comrades are the wise Sienna, who is a wizard, the believer Annis, who is the healer of the team, the brave Malon, who is the tank, and lastly the stupid Hamel, who is our protagonist. Hamel considers Vermouth as his rival. They dominate the kingdom. But suddenly a monster surprises Vermouth. Hamel runs fast and protects him, thus receiving an attack that pierces his chest. In his last moments, Hamel is saying goodbye to everyone. He is now a child and his past life was written down in a book. When he reincarnated, he kept his memories of his past life. It has been 300 years since his death on the mission to eliminate the demon kings. Surprisingly, he reincarnated as a descendant of the hero Vermouth. Hamel is now called Eugene Lionheart and is 13 years old. Vermouth had several women, but his only official lineage was from his wife. Several branches of his lineage exist, but the indirect branches are not taken into consideration. Eugene has the same Lionheart surname but comes from an indirect branch. A lineage ceremony is coming soon where they will compete. Those from an indirect branch are forbidden to use a real sword and train the mana. Eugene practices with a wooden sword. His father is a bit scared because Eugene doesn't look like a child. He has a scary gaze and a dark aura. Tomorrow is the lineage succession ceremony. It is a tradition that occurs once every 10 years. Both lines, direct and branch, participate. They choose children between 10 to 15 years old from the main house, and they compete to see who has the ability to be worthy of being called Lionheart. But the direct line, unlike the branch, could train with real weapons and train their mana. This is because they don't want someone who comes from a branch to succeed more than those who come from the direct lineage. Instead, Eugene is incredibly talented. His father feels guilty for not possessing talent. There will be 3 children from the direct line and 6 from the branch who are the competitors. One of the direct line children will be the son from the first wife, and the other 2 will be the twins from the second wife. 2 of the branches have a relatively larger authority. The others are trash. Eugene begins to remember his past. At that time he thought he was a genius, but he really wasn't. A real genius was the great Vermouth, praised by everyone and known as the god of war. His other sidekicks were also highly regarded in their fields. Eugene is frustrated and wonders if the Demon King is still alive to this day. In his past life, Vermouth promised him that he would kill the Demon King of imprisonment, and thanks to that promise that peace lasted up to now. 300 years later, they finally reach the main territory of the Lionhearts. Eugene arrives in the kingdom. Only those who belong to the direct line are allowed to wear an emblem on their left side. Eugene stays there. There is a maid who will help him with anything he needs. Eugene asks her to show him the gym. Outside there are a boy and a girl who have the emblem. These are the twins and they are making fun of him for being poor. The 2 of them give him a warning. The other boy peeks out, but is quickly caught by the girl. Eugene is training with a wooden spear. The maid is amazed at how it moves. The twins arrive in the area. They are called Cyan and Seal. Cyan asks him what he is doing. Eugene says, "Can't you see I am wielding a spear?" and calls him an idiot. Cyan gets very angry and asks him to apologize. Eugene apologizes, but Eugene doesn't believe him. They keep fighting him and ask him to clean the carriage he used. Eugene tells the maid to clean it. Cyan starts yelling about why he is ignoring their order, since he is Cyan Lionheart. Eugene mockingly says, "And I am Eugene Lionheart." Seal Lionheart also introduces himself. Cyan is still upset that he ignored his order, so he picks up a wooden sword from the floor and challenges him to a duel. Eugene tries not to accept the duel, but Cyan keeps insisting and gets annoying. In the end he accepts and starts to take the weights off. He had weights on his clothes and throws. Cyan is surprised by how much weight he had. The 2 get into their positions and in the blink of an eye, Eugene easily takes Chow down. He makes him throw up and his sister doesn't understand what happened and thinks he did train the mana, saying it's unfair what he did. But in the end, he ends up accepting it. A man named Hezar arrives and comes to guide the young Cyan. He asks him what happened and Eugene explains. In the end they decide to retire and leave. Tonight, another competitor will arrive and the rest will arrive tomorrow. Cyan told his mother what happened. The mother is the second wife of the direct line Anasilia. She is enraged at how a commoner humiliated her son. Cyan apologizes to her, but she slaps him and asks Hezar to take him away and train him. She tells Seal to stay by Eugene's side. If she had the chance, she would kill him, but she'd be the first suspect. And then the guardians of the family code would come. He asks her to befriend him. The next day the 3 heirs of the collateral lines arrived. Their names are Deacon aged 11, Hansen aged 14 and Juiz aged 10. The head of the family also arrived. Everyone gathers to welcome him. They all meet. The legal wife Theonis and the eldest son of the direct family are also there. Also, the first in the line of succession Iode Lionheart. Gilead Lionheart arrives and next to him is his younger brother Jim. Gilead greets everyone and invites them to dinner together. They are at the family table. The only others missing are Gargis and Desera. Despite the fact that they are from a branch family, they are highly regarded. There is a man who also accompanies them called Loberian from the Red Tower. He is Siena's disciple, or rather the disciple of Siena's disciple. 300 years ago, Siena ascended to Master of the Green Tower, becoming the youngest Tower Master in the history of Aeroth. She rebuilt the standard magic books in Aeroth. So, both Green and Red Towers keep the wise Siena as their Grand Master. Gilead makes Cyan apologize to Eugene. He also praises Eugene. He is surprised to hear that Eugene practically trained alone and thus defeated his son. They start eating, and after the meal, they explain that the first test is a labyrinth. Inside the labyrinth there are traps and monsters, but the monsters are Loberian's illusions, even though he is sure that they would feel very real. If they manage to defeat the labyrinth's boss, they will be able to pick a treasure from the Lionheart family treasure room. Dinner is over and Eugene is walking when he runs into Gargis and Desera. They ask him if he really defeated Cyan. He answers that he did and leaves. Eugene goes outside to train. Gargis and Desera arrive again. Desera challenges him to a spear fight since her specialty is spear fighting. Gargis will be the judge. The fight begins. Eugene blocks all the attacks from Desera. Desera no longer knows what to do. After throwing multiple attacks, she thinks she found an opening, but is easily blocked, thus giving the victory to Eugene. Gargis and Desera want to join forces with Eugene in order to defeat the direct line. As this has never happened, Anasilia wants to find a way for her children to survive. She hopes that Iode will be chosen by Loberian so that he will leave the family for a while. Her children will become stronger and take the first position of successor. The day of the test arrives. Loberian provides them with a magic that allows them to create the weapon they want. Each one made their own weapon. Then he gave them a necklace that helps them to know if they are in danger or want to get out of the labyrinth. They all enter the portal that leads to the labyrinth. Eugene is used to labyrinths as in his past life he went through many, thus has everything under his control. 3 have already been disqualified. The others are still in the labyrinth. Loberian and Gilead are observing each of them. They analyze them and say what weaknesses they have. The eldest son seems more interested in magic, but he doesn't want to pursue that because of his mother. However, his father wants him to pursue his dreams. Loberian comments that his favorite story is Siena's. On the other hand, Gilead's most likely favorite character in the story was Hamel because he was shocked to see Eugene's ability. They were both speechless watching him fight. Surprised, they call him a genius, because that troll was a test to find out how he escaped, not to fight him. Instead, he defeated him easily. Gargis also manages to defeat him, but he was so wounded that he faints. Cyan manages to escape from the troll and joins his sister Seal. Desera also appears and scares Cyan. He scares her due to his scream. This was actually an ambush, but it failed, so she tries to run away. The two chase her all the way to the end, and by chance they reach the center of the labyrinth and the final boss is there. Eugene was already there in a corner, and asks why did the 3 of them arrive together. I waited for them because I was curious about who arrived first. Seal tells him it was him. What Eugene wants to do is give up the spot to them, because if he fights alone, he easily defeats him. He comments that it would be sad for them who struggle to get there. The monster does not attack if you are not within a certain distance. He suggests attacking it by order of arrival. Desera goes first, then Cyan and lastly Seal. Each one is going to fight alone. Eugene tells Desera that if she doesn't dare, she should surrender, but she doesn't. Cyan says if Eugene is going to fight, Eugene goes last, and if Cyan manages to defeat him, he will call Cyan Big Brother for the rest of his life, which of course motivates Cyan. The final boss is a Minotaur. Desera is already face to face with the Minotaur. She starts the fight, but is easily overpowered. The Minotaur catches her and throws her away, thus ending the fight. It didn't attack her anymore since she is an illusion. Cyan's next. He turns his sword into Kai. This technique requires 10 years of practice and the mana to be able to achieve it. His Kai disappears because the one who created the labyrinth is Loberian, and he disabled the use of Kai, so everyone is on equal footing. Cyan goes straight for the Minotaur. Cyan manages to inflict small cuts on him, but they are not enough. He goes for its legs, but is blocked by the knee, then is caught and thrown. Also missed. It's Seal's turn, but she prefers not to fight since she can't use Kai either. It would be all in vain. Eugene thinks she is smarter than her brother. He picks up his sword and shield. The fight begins. Eugene climbs up the Minotaur's body. He dodges all his attacks and goes all the way up to his head. The Minotaur throws a fist towards his face, thus hitting himself. Then, Eugene begins to cut him in his neck, mainly in his artery, managing to knock him down completely and thus winning the fight. Cyan is speechless and feels some kind of emotion, but it is not fear. Most likely it is admiration towards his power. The ceremony is over. Gilead is surprised, but especially Loberian, since he could easily defeat and go through his labyrinth as if it was nothing. Gilead sent several men to investigate Eugene's town, where he is well known for his persistence in training. Gilade comments that he was born to fight. Loberian asks him if he doesn't mind that he is better than his sons. However, Gilade is happy because it will make the lion heart name shine a whole lot brighter. Loberian continues to insist on what would happen if he decides to become the next heir, and thus become the new leader of the Lionheart family, to which Gilade replies that the position of the head must be held by the best of the Lionhearts. If his family cannot secure it, it is rightfully his. Loberian proposes that Gilade adopt him as his son, to prevent the collateral families from causing unrest. All the children gather except for the 3 who lost first. Gilade is wondering why they failed. Io didn't make it to the labyrinth because he was distracted by magic. Cyan and Seal made it, but didn't defeat the Minotaur. On the other hand, Eugene did everything perfect. Gilade congratulates them all, but especially Eugene. They all leave to rest, but Gilade asks Eugene to come with him. Gilade is about to hand him the treasure. Seal feels jealous as she has never been to the treasure room. As they are walking along, he talks about the talent he has when it comes to being able to use any kind of weapon. Currently in the Lionheart family, the sword is the forte, but in the past, Vermouth could use any type of weapon. He was called the god of war, master of all. He also talks about how Vermouth was not the only one who was proficient with all weapons. The other was Hamel, also a great master only after Vermouth, confessing to him that he liked Hamel more than Vermouth. Eugene froze. Instead of the divine aspect of Vermouth, he prefers the human qualities of Hamel. He never felt inferior to Vermouth. On the contrary, he sought to surpass his limits. In the end, he ended up sacrificing himself for his friends. They arrive at the place where all the treasures are. Eugene is the first person who is not the head of a family to come there. There is a senate where the old lions of Lionheart are. They are composed of direct branch family and indirect branch family. Only the most important ones are there. In the treasure room are heirlooms that have accumulated over hundreds of years. Among them are the heirlooms of the great Vermouth. Eugene asks for the sacred sword, but it is not possible to obtain it since it is a symbol of the Lionheart family. Another reason is that after Vermouth, no other person has been recognized by the sacred sword. They open the chamber and Eugene enters excitedly, and looks intently at the sacred sword. The sacred sword is a sword that has existed since the origin of the sacred empire of Eurus. It is a sword given by God. Only Vermouth has managed to wield it. With this same sword 300 years ago, he defeated the demon king of slaughter, the 5th highest entity in the infernal realm Helmuth. Eugene tries to pull out the sword, but ultimately, he cannot. Besides, even if he picked it up, he couldn't have it. So, he gives up and decides to go for something else. While looking, he finds a spell. The Sword of Gluttony is a sword that can consume the mana it cuts and turn it into its own power. It can cut a powerful spell with a single stroke. However, the reason Vermouth could use a spell is that he was also an excellent wizard. It's too much for his current self, so he decides to keep looking. There are several weapons he is familiar with, such as, for example, the Draconian Carbo's spear. It takes a bit of time to heat it up, but it can throw flames at the level of a dragon's breath. The Winneth Storm Sword. It is a sword that was blessed by the elemental spirit, King of the Wind. The Bow of Unbridled Thunder. Pernoa. It is a bow that can shoot thunder, no matter the distance. The Flying Usury Sword. Jabal. It is a sword that, when you apply the mana to it, becomes into a whip with hundreds of blades. Jedon's Shield. It is a shield that can deflect all incoming attacks into a void. Eugene says they're all awesome and he wouldn't mind grabbing some of those, but he wonders if there will be more stuff. He doesn't see the Moonlight Sword or the Demon Spear. He thinks the easiest choice for now is the Winneth Sword, although he prefers to keep looking a little longer. There are also gems and accessories, not just weapons. When he takes a good look, he grabs a necklace. That necklace was the one he had in his past life as Hamel, the memory of his parents, who were eaten by monsters. He wonders why it is there. Maybe Vermouth brought his body to his house. He is a little confused as to why Helmuth and 2 Demon Kings still exist. He wonders what promise they made by putting his memories there. Eugene doesn't want to blame them. He thinks there must be a reason why they couldn't kill the Demon King. In the end, he decides to take his necklace from the past. He does not want Hamel's memory to remain in that vault. Gilade is surprised by Eugene's choice, since supposedly that crystal has no potential at all. Gilade thinks it's weird since that crystal isn't registered in the vault. He wants Loberian to analyze it to see what kind of spell it has. Since that necklace isn't a Lionheart treasure, Gilade lets him pick something else. He runs quickly and picks up the Winneth Sword. Eugene is outside talking to Gargaz and Desera. He talks to her about what was there. Desire was very excited about the spears that were there. She doesn't understand why Eugene chose a sword. She is excited to hear what kind of spear was in the vault. 300 years ago, there were 5 demon kings in Helmuth's demonic domain. Rank 1, the demon king of the apocalypse. Rank 2, the demon king of imprisonment. Rank 3, the demon king of madness. Rank 4, the demon king of brutality. Rank 5, the demon king of massacre. Desire and Gargis discuss which demon king is stronger. The demon weapons of brutality and massacre were missing. Eugene wonders where they might be. If there was the sword of the moonlight blade, Eugene would choose it without thinking. It was this same one that defeated the demon king of brutality and slaughter. Eugene starts practicing with it while the other two watch him. We move on to Gilead and Loberian. Loberian analyzes the necklace, but it contains no magic. They wonder why an object like that is in the vault. Loberian comments that there exists magic that can read the memories of the mana. Sienna was the one who created this magic. All objects have the mana, so she will use this magic for the necklace. She activates the magic, but only a few seconds from 100 years ago. Apparently, the other objects damage the mana of the necklace. So, in the end, Gilead will give the necklace to Eugene and offer to adopt him as his son. Jin Lionheart goes over to Eugene. He is happy to finally see him in person. Jin will help guide him when there are meetings and things like that. He guides him to the main room where Gilead is. Eugene and Gilead start talking about the necklace. Gilead told him that he used the magic to read the memory, but they only saw the market where it was sold. Eugene is weirded out because it's not possible for his necklace to be in a place like that. Gilead is going to tell him about the adoption, but before he spoke, Eugene thought he was going to have his marriage arranged with Seal. Gilead sees that Eugene is misunderstanding things and explains about the adoption. Eugene is surprised, but Gilead explains that his father will also become part of the main family, that his intention is not to steal his son. Eugene prefers his dad to make that decision. Gilead will bring him in to discuss it. A gem is needed to train the mana. It breaks and releases a certain amount of mana. The monsters have it in their chests, so Eugene wants to practice it already. Eugene withdraws and notices a certain scent of perfume. There is someone hiding in the corner. He discovers it's Anacilia. Anacilia can't stand Eugene, but in her mind, it is better to be on good terms with Eugene, since Eugene has a big future in the family and this could backfire on her. She asks him what he talked about with Gilead, but Eugene says it's private. She plays dumb and Eugene decides to walk away. Behind him, she was showing her true face. 2 days go by and Eugene's father arrives. The two embrace. Jehard didn't think his son would make it. Jehard and Gilead head inside to talk. Gilead tells him about the adoption, but Jehard is unsure. He thinks the other immediate family members will take it the wrong way. Gilead tries to convince him that adopting him could increase his potential. The father goes to Eugene to talk about it. In the end, he decides to accept the adoption as it would be the best thing for his future, although he prepares himself for the difficulties he will face. But Eugene tells him not to worry, and that he will also be his only real father. They part ways and Eugene goes back to training. He has no intention of becoming head of the family. Besides, the two wives won't allow it. He says the best way to end the conflict is to ignore it or attack it directly. All the families meet at the ceremony to share. Cyan's mother tells him to get ready because, from now on, he will be compared to him. She tells him not to worry because he is still her son and from the direct line. She asks him to befriend him. Seal is bothering Eugene. She wants him to tell her Nuna. Iode Lionheart decides to go with Loberian to practice his magic. But for now, he won't be Loberian's apprentice. Iode is happy because he is moving away from the family. Mom puts pressure on him and reminds him that he has to become the patriarch. Gilead warns her to leave him alone. Fianus is thinking that Anacilia probably is happy about this. Iode was not born with the talent befitting his lineage, and is naive and weak-willed. He will be better off making connections with various wizards, growing his power in Aeroth. The day after the banquet, Iode leaves with Loberian. The other sons of the branches also returned to their own homes. Eugene and Gerhard ended up using the empty building. Today Eugene will learn the mana for the first time. The development of the mana is categorized into two: breathing and body training. Breathing involves collecting the mana from the atmosphere through your breath. Body training has to do with moving your body to collect the mana. Neither is easy, but breathing is more prominent than body training. In the past, Hamel used the training one, but then switched to breathing on the recommendation of Sienna and Vermouth. Eugene and Jin meet and head to the forest where the mana is concentrated. This forest was created by Vermouth 300 years ago. Jin gives him 10 days to feel the mana, to which he thinks it won't even take 10 minutes. They enter a hut. There is a staircase that leads to a ritual circle. There is a rule stating that branch families cannot learn the mana. Instead, they are taught the red flame ritual, which is useless compared to the original one. The white flame ritual is only for the main family. Eugene does not know much, but he has seen it in Vermouth. the high-density layer of the mana that surrounded his body. This materialized into white flames. It looked like a lion's mane in those times. Eugene concentrates and begins to feel the mana. Jin doesn't believe him and says it's just his imagination. Jin casts an aura on him and Eugene guesses with his eyes closed what position he is in. Jin is very surprised. The two meditate to transport the mana throughout the body. Eugene does it with ease, surpassing Jin's expectation. Eugene's core is very large compared to beginners. Jin calls him a monster. They leave the site. Jin explains that a core can split. These are called stars, and who started this was Vermouth. He had 10 stars and was the only one to reach that number. Jin and Gilead have 6 stars. Cyan, Seal, and Iode have 1 star. Eugene is excited to be reincarnated in a body much better than his old one. He is also learning the Vermouth technique. They return to the castle. Jin tells his brother what happened. Eugene wants to try something and Nina appears. He asks her to bring him the sword. Nina brings it to him. Eugene takes out the mana and takes it to his sword. He creates a powerful tornado. Inside the tornado a voice is heard. The voice says, "It's you, Hamel, I remember you." The voice must be the spiritual king of the wind, Tempest. Tempest knows that he is reincarnated since the soul does not change, even if thousands of years go by. Eugene asks him why Vermouth did not kill the remaining demon kings and Tempest. Tempest says that the battle against the imprisonment demon was quite difficult. Only Vermouth and the demon king were left standing. Vermouth put away his weapon and also did not address the demon king of the apocalypse. Apparently, he made a contract with him. Eugene wants to know what kind of deal it was, but Tempest doesn't know. Eugene collapses to the ground from the incredible force of the sword, running out of the mana. He was concerned that he wasn't actually the reincarnation of Hamel. What if he was just someone whose memories were rewritten by Hamel? But from what Tempest said, this confirms that he is indeed the reincarnation. Jin and Gilead arrive, again being shocked that no one after Vermouth could summon an elemental king. Geo will be in charge of training him. Cyan and Seal. Outside are Cyan and Seal training not to be left behind. Sylph is a low-rank elemental. Eugene tells him that, if his king lied, he will kill him. Eugene plans to go to Helmuth, Eroth, Erez, and Luhar to see what happened to his old comrades. Although with that body he can't go there yet, but he will someday. 4 years have passed and Eugene Lionheart is now 17 years old. He has 3 stars in his body. In order to keep improving, he wants to go to Eroth to learn magic. He meets Cyan outside after practicing. Cyan tells him that he didn't forget that when Iode went there, after the ceremony, he wasn't good enough to become Loberian's disciple. Even though he managed to get into the Red Tower through connections, he could not make any great achievements. Eugene turns to Gilead, talks to him about what he wants to do. Gilead doesn't seem to agree, but in the end he can't refuse. He wants him to promise not to take part in black magic. Though, Eroth is a black tower, where dark wizards gather. Currently there are no bad rumors about the tower, but the Lionheart's family have a law where they stand against dark magic. Eugene tells him not to worry. He knows perfectly well the things they did 300 years ago. He leaves and Seal wants to talk to him, but she stays behind the door. She asks him if he is really going to Eroth. She doesn't want him to go to Eroth. She starts giving him possible solutions to make him stay. Seal proposes a duel if she doesn't leave. Eugene does not change his objective. Seal asks him what will happen with his father. He answers that he is fine. He is already used to life in the main house. She also says that Uncle Jin will be sad, and that there is also his brother. Eugene leaves and she didn't want him to leave too. Eugene says goodbye to everything and enters the portal. We are already in Eroth and he is traveling through the sky. There are 5 towers that create a pentagram. In the middle, there is the castle. Eugene wants to visit Sienna's mansion. 200 years ago, she left her mansion, only leaving a letter saying she was going to retire. Her disciples and wizards tried to track her down, but could not find her. The curious thing is that on the day she disappeared, it was her birthday. The guide gives his opinion saying that maybe she went to the demonic realm of Helmuth, and that she supposedly went to avenge her companion Hamel. There is also another theory that dark wizards murdered her. Eugene thinks it was the demon kings because the dark tower is linked to Helmuth. Many people pray in front of the mansion to pass the magical test. Eugene enters the mansion and proceeds to investigate how did she live. In the past, Sienna asked Hamel what plans he had for the future, to which he had nothing in mind. Moron was planning to be the king. Hamel asked Sienna about her dreams and plans. She said just to live like an ordinary person, get married, have children, and then be an old woman. In the end, she lived life alone for 100 years. Eugene wants to see the library in the basement. He wants to find out if there are any clues, but he can't open the books because of the watching guard. He also wonders how his necklace appeared. It is odd to him. Apparently, someone messed with his reincarnation. There are rumors that every night he enjoys pleasure with a succubus. Eugene gets angry and screams because there is a damn succubus in a place like this. The Dark Tower not only has dark wizards, but there are also demons. There is an alley that is known and famous for its black market, but there are a few impure stores that have succubus serving as waitresses. And rumor has it that Iode visits the place regularly. The alley is called Bolero. It only becomes a corrupt alley on full moons. Eugene had no plans to approach Iode and wanted to concentrate on his work. He is very angry that he is staining the family name, and on top of that with a demon. He wants to beat him, but first he wants to have evidence. He will wait for a full moon so he can visit the alley. Eugene arrives at the Red Tower. Outside there is a girl named Hira. Suddenly, above the tower, an explosion occurs. Some shadow monsters come out, but they are caught and eliminated by Loberian. Loberian scolds his students for the mistake they made in the summoning magic. He sees Eugene and goes down to greet him. Eugene realizes the incredible power that Loberian has. His brother Iode appears through the door. Eugene sees how he is finished by the succubus. He is very angry with him. The teacher sends him up and reads something. Loberian comments that based on what Gilade said, Eugene doesn't want to learn magic directly from him. Our protagonist talks about not wanting to cause problems and, furthermore, that people would take it badly with the Lionheart family. He wants to learn magic on his own. The teacher says that any questions you ask Hira. It has already been 1 month since I arrived at the tower. He went to the library every day to read the magical texts. He trained his mana in the morning and his body at night. I have finished reading all the books in the library. 300 years ago, Sienna divided the stages of magic into clear levels. It was originally his own unique style. But once she became the master of the Green Tower, many wizards of Aeroth began to follow her methodology. The first is circles, a ring of circulating mana, spun to create magic. When the mana grows beyond the limits of one circle, another one is formed. 300 years later, most wizards learn magic using the circles. The only wizards that don't use the circles are those with completely different backgrounds, such as elemental magic or dark magic. Eugene arrives at the practice room where Hira is. Hira suggests doing the magic circle, but Eugene wants to put his own spin on it. He wants to use the Lionheart mana method. Hira is not in favor of this since it is very difficult. If the mana spiral gets out of control, you could be seriously injured or even killed. Eugene does not give up and she gives up and will let him do it. But she's going to interfere if she thinks he's getting dangerous. It starts drawing out all of its mana. The ritual of the white flame and the circles have different methods, but in essence, they are the same. With the white flame method, the mana is handled through the heart stars. With circles, the mana is handled through a hook. He will replace the circle with his stars, and with that, he can increase his mana. You can control the mana depending on what the situation calls for. She would only be annoying if she tried to predict how it would turn out and what would happen to be wrong. Hira can't believe that at only 17 years old she was able to do that. Eugene manages to control his magic perfectly. He asks her to summon a monster to test his power. It summons a golem. It easily defeats it with its magic. Hira is with Loberian and explains what happened. Loberian can't believe it. He says he's a talented monster. Hira talks about her magic being at the same level or even above a level 3 magician. Loberian wonders if it would be unreasonable to write Akrian a letter of recommendation for Eugene. The Royal Librarian Akrian. Only high-ranking mages, high aristocrats, and royalty can enter. Loberian ultimately decides to create the letter of recommendation since Eugene has what it takes. For 1 month he has managed to do all that and learned all the magic books. He wonders where he went since he doesn't know anyone in Aeroth. Hira replies that he told her he was going to visit a friend. While in the Murdain Square, Eugene is looking at the statue of Sienna. A man arrives and it is Gargis himself. Gargis once again recommends his family's secret potion. It allows him to grow more muscles. Eugene brushes him off again and asks why he actually came. He asks if he knows Bolero Alley. Eugene says yes. It's the alley where Iode goes. Gargis wants to go there because there's a giant's testicle up for auction. Our protagonist can't believe it. On top of that, he begs him to lend him money. He wants to have that since it is very valuable among magicians. You want to create a new recipe. Eugene comments that a few days ago he saw Iode in the corridors. He saw her face and it was showing signs of withdrawal from the succubus. In this next full moon, Iode will definitely return to that alley. Eugene returns to the tower and they go directly to the room where Loberian is. Loberian shows Akrian the letter of recommendation. Akrian, the Royal Library, is the place where the essence of magic Aeroth is recorded. Famous even 300 years ago. As abundant as the magical tower texts are, they cannot compare to Akrian in quality. Eugene isn't sure about this, but Loberian says it's the perfect time, since he still hasn't learned many things about magic. You have many possibilities and the opportunity to learn about the Akrian books, so your magic will become amazing. Akrian contains ancient magic from the mythical era, as well as the texts of the philosopher considered the best of his time. In a crayon are the 3 original copies of the series of texts called Witchcraft, which Sienna wrote all the essence of her magic in her later years. Sorcery is considered the best magical text in the history of Eroth, and there are no copies of it. Only the first volume has been published. Just reading that volume will increase your knowledge of magic to a higher level. Eugene is hesitant on how to answer him. However, he asks about his brother Iode. She wants to see if he knows about the situation she is in. Loberian knows it, but has tried to stop it, but has not been able to. He wants Eugene to understand since he came to Eroth. He has failed so much. He has put a lot of pressure on himself, and that is why to relieve his stress he went to the succubus. Before, the succubi sucked the soul until they killed the person. But ever since the Helmud kingdom opened its gates, the witch queen forbade killing. Eugene, on the one hand, can understand it because the pressure from the family is great. Even worse, he still disagrees as it is dangerous. It's a full moon and Eugene together with Gargaz are in the alley. They are using magic to change their appearance. Since no one can know that an important family member is there, they position themselves for when Iode appears. In the auction there is a rule. Bids and buyers are anonymous. Each person is in a different room except your partner, and people can't check who else is participating. There are 3 buttons. The middle one is to be able to participate, the right one if you want to increase your offer, and the left one if you need additional assistance. The presenter comes out and explains how this all works. They are auctioning high-value items that come from Helmud. At one point they show a box containing a piece of metal. Eugene quickly hits the button to buy it. He realized that this metal fragment belongs to the Lunar Light Sword. In his past life, they found the sword in the Khazard place. This sword only obeyed Vermouth. Eugene thinks that maybe when he died, Vermouth left and broke the sword in the same place. They inform him that Iode arrived at the alley. Eugene arrives at the place of the succubi and enters. The succubus who takes care of him takes him to the rooms, but he tells her that he wants to go into the dining room. While he is eating, his brother Iode arrives all sucked. Eugene follows them and sees that they are heading to a hidden house. Suddenly 3 men come out threatening him. Eugene easily defeats them without issue. He enters and the 3 men attack him, but they are easily defeated by his magic. He takes out his sword and goes to the rooms on levels 1 and 2. He goes to the room on level 3 and realizes they are going to attack him with dark magic. Quickly, he pulls out the fragment of the Moonlight Sword and absorbs the dark magic. The witch leaves the room and Eugene realizes that Iode is linked to black magic. He gets very angry that his own father warned Eugene not to get in contact with dark magic, and that how the first part of this Manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and want the next part, comment below with the word king. Also subscribe to the channel, hit. In the previous chapter, Eugene enters the house where Lode had previously entered, and although he doesn't know what is behind the door he is about to cross, he realizes that a wizard is guarding the entrance, so he suspects that Lode is getting involved with black magic. That said, let's continue with the story. Then we see Eugene very furious unleash all his power, but behind the magician 2 demons that work for him appear. They throw themselves against Eugene, but he is too powerful and the demons are not worthy rivals for his strength. He ends up destroying them without any difficulty. Then the magician thinks about how Eugene could become so powerful. In any case, Eugene tells the magician to get out of the way, but he tries to block it using his powers. Eugene avoids them without haste and puts his sword against the magician's neck and warns him not to move or else he will kill him. When he enters the room, he finds a chalice that is used to make rituals, and inside it is a unicorn heart. At that moment, Eugene thinks that the unicorns have a very powerful power and mana, and that they have even been nicknamed as divine water. That means that the ritual they are going to do will be very powerful because the difference between a unicorn heart and a human heart is abysmal in terms of power. So Eugene asks the magician about the kind of ritual he is going to do, and what kind of demon he intends to do it with. But the magician tells her that he is not trying to agree anything with any demon, since he intends to do it with Baron Ulfar, who is the subordinate incubus of Duchess Jabella, Queen of the Night. But Eugene knows that although this Duchess is not at the level of a demon king, she is at the level to be called Duchess. In any case, he tells the wizard that he expected more, seeing that a unicorn heart is being used. But the wizard answers that everything was Lode's request, since he was the one who bought the unicorn heart and ordered the wizard to do the ritual. Then Eugene goes to where Lode is lying down and slaps him awake. When Lode wakes up, he asks Eugene what he is doing there. Eugene answers that he has been following him, and that he also heard that Lode has had a bad situation, and he has been trying to understand what Lode is going through, and that is why he asks him not to get involved with black magic, since Lode is one of the bearers of the Lionheart name, and by the way, he is the main heir, besides trying to make a pact with something as low as an incubus. But Lode answers that everything is under control, and this makes Eugene angry, and he gives him a strong headbutt and asks him what he means by saying that everything is under control, and that he has no idea what it means to make a contract with a demon. so don't try to pretend that controlling an incubus is something as simple as it sounds. Then Lode answers that he thought it was very simple, but Eugene says very upset and explains that making a contract with a demon requires giving his soul to him, so he will have to obey everything the demon orders him to do. Even if the demon orders him to kill his whole family, he would have to do it, and not to think that demons are creatures with ethics. Then Lode tells Eugene that he doesn't know all the pain he is going through. Basically, Lode is envious because for 4 years his brother has been calling attention to him, and that's why nobody notices Lode. But Eugene tells him that it's not right, since both of them were given the same kind of support by their families, but he never knew how to take advantage of anything. Besides, Eugene has trained very hard. He has studied without resting, while all Lode does is lose himself in alcohol and drugs. In any case, Lode continues to insist on becoming a dark magician, and while he is talking he is interrupted by a strong fist that Eugene hits him, and tells him to stop crying because of his own bad decisions. And at that moment some guards arrive and take the wizard away. The master of the Red Tower also arrives, to which Lode must give him an explanation, but Lode insists again and again that he got involved with dark magic. Even so, the master of the Red Tower knows that this was not so he will send him to give explanations to Lord Gillard. That same night, they meet the Lord to talk about it, but a guy named Balzac arrives who is the master of the Tower of Dark Magic, and is one of the 3 dark wizards, possibly more powerful, so he sits at the table where they are all gathered. But this act bothers Theenys a lot. Then the master of the Red Tower tells her to calm down because Balzac has had nothing to do with the incident with Lode. But this makes her more furious. She thinks that Balzac was the magician who was with Lode at that moment, but in reality it was a dark friend called Jevid, and Balzac assures that he had no knowledge of what that magician was up to. Besides, Jevid does not belong to the Tower of Dark Magicians. But even so, Theenys is still very angry. But at that moment the Lord spoke, saying that if the Tower of Dark Friends is not involved in the incident, then why is Balzac there? And he answers that he has to assume the responsibility in part, because even if he wasn't involved in the incident as such, many creatures that belonged to the Tower of Dark Wizards were. So to patch things up a bit he decided to take some measures, and among them is to cut off the head of the incubus that Jevid summoned to make a contract with Lode. And once again he apologizes for the inconveniences caused and leaves, but not before looking at Eugene in a mischievous way. Once Balzac leaves the place, the Lord asks Eugene to leave, and when this happens the Lord apologizes to Loberian, the master of the Red Tower, for the inconveniences, but he tells him that it was nothing. Then the Lord wants to send Lode to the main family as punishment, but this makes Theenys very nervous, and she tells the Lord that this measure is too strict, since Lode didn't get into dark magic as such. He only tried it, and tries to explain to him that Lode will not do it again since he will take this incident as a lesson. But the Lord is radical in the decision he made, and even though Lode is his son he will not hesitate. But Theenys gets too upset and tells him that she will not allow Lode to go to the main family, and that if that is the case, then she prefers to send him to his parents' house because there he will be able to learn magic without being repressed of his desires. And the Lord then tells the woman to do what she wants. On the other hand, Balzac meets Eugene outside the salon. He tells Eugene that because of the situation in the salon they could not have a decent conversation, but he replies that he is not interested in having a decent conversation with a dark wizard. And Balzac tells him that he understands their differences and that even if Eugene hates dark magic, Balzac also tells him that he has heard of Eugene, since the performance he had in the succession ceremony years ago was formidable, and that nowadays what he does with magic is spectacular. He also mentions something that he could not say inside the room because it was not convenient for him, but he tells her that he took some responsibilities when he became master of the Dark Tower, and that there is one thing that benefits Eugene, and that is that he is interested in writing a letter of recommendation for Eugene, so that he can be accepted in a crim. And Eugene tells him that he will receive it, but that it does not mean that they are friends. So Balzac tells him that it is more than enough for him, and without more to add then he leaves. But when he leaves, Eugene asks him if he really had nothing to do with what happened to Lode. And Balzac answers that he is a dark wizard with a lot of pride, and that he would not dare to stain the name of dark magic with such pathetic acts, and to take that as an answer. And then Eugene leaves too and goes to his room, and stares at the unicorn heart, the same one that the Lord gave him as a reward for solving the case of Lode. So Eugene decides to take the mana from that heart since it has no impurities and is quite strong, and at the rate he is going he could reach the 4 stars of power before the age of 20. And Eugene is determined to achieve such power, for the sake of the family. But at that moment he is interrupted by the bidder telling him that the giant's testicles are worth 30 million, and that if they don't get the money before midnight then they will be put up for auction again. So they quickly go to the bank, and there Eugene pays the exuberant figure. After this they retire to see what they have bought, in that Eugene comments that he is not interested in seeing the testicles of a giant, but he will go anyway. And while they are walking, Eugene notices something strange and runs out to see. because what he saw, or rather, who he saw was Sienna. When she arrives at the place, he doesn't know what to say to her, since she probably doesn't remember him because the last time they saw each other was 300 years ago, and he doesn't think that she will believe the story that he reincarnated just like that. So Eugene is going to hold her hand, but everything turns out to be a magic projection. Then the figure of Sienna turns to look at him, and while looking at him she disappears. Then Eugene thinks about him because Sienna would send a hallucination instead of coming physically, and comes to the conclusion that maybe she was sealed and sent that hallucination to let him know. Then Eugene gets ready to go in search of Sienna, but at that moment the man who was with him before arrives, and Eugene asks him about the red flame method, which makes him become super strong, and he teaches him the method. But Eugene tells him thanks for the show and leaves. Then we go to the Red Magic Tower, and there Eugene is looking for Sienna's texts, which are in a Korean. So he will have to take advantage of the recommendations that the masters of the Red and Dark Towers will make to him to be able to access a Korean, and to do the pertinent thing to find those texts. Meanwhile, he observes the fragment of the sword that he had bought in the auction, but he arrives to the conclusion that he must be able to assemble the complete sword. In a change of scene, we see that some days ago they have been sounding explosions in one of the rooms of the Red Tower, and when they arrive to the place they find Eugene training strongly his mana. In passing, they give him the news that the master of the tower needs him, so Eugene takes his things and goes to see him. But they tell him that the master is in the royal library in Korean, and so they go to the place. And meanwhile, Eugene keeps looking towards Abraham's castle, and tells his companion that this castle is not a place he would like to visit very often. Meanwhile, his companion explains to him some things that have to do with the castle, and when they arrive at the castle gates, she tells Eugene that there are 3 people who did not agree with her recommendation to a Korean, and they were the master of the Blue Tower, the master of the Green Tower, and the master of the Mages Guild. So she tells her to earn the recognition of these 3, so that she has absolute access to a Korean. And after this, the girl leaves and wishes Eugene luck. And when he enters, he introduces himself to the masters that are there. Among them are the captain of the Friends of the Castle, Roberian, the master of the Green Magic Tower, the master of the Blue Tower, the master of the White Magic Tower, also Belzec, the master of the Mages Guild, and finally the first successor of the line of Aroth. And he tells her that he had already heard the name of Eugene and that it is good that he is finally meeting him in person. And also the master of the Blue Tower tells him that both the master of the Red Tower and Balzac have been speaking very well of him, and that makes him aware that he has talento. But he thinks about how a boy with only 17 years old is involved in magic and has already received a recommendation for a Korean, and draws his own conclusions, which are not good. But then the master of the Red Tower tells Eugene that he must show his magic to those present for them to qualify it. So Eugene is ready to do so. While Eugene does her thing, all the people present contemplate the situation, and it seems that everybody is amazed, because Eugene definitely has talent controlling her mana. But everybody keeps discretion, although inside they are completely surprised. Then the master of the Red Tower asks Eugene to finish the presentation and leave the place, because the judges must talk about the subject alone, and Eugene leaves without any problem. Meanwhile, the master of the Red Tower explains to the audience that Eugene has studied the books of magic by her own, and all begin to question and debate about the subject, because in spite that Eugene is so skilled and talented for his age, this same one prevents him to enter to a Korean. And the reason is because they are simply a Korean's politics. However, some present agree that an exception can be made, so the teacher of the White Tower invites them all to make a vote, because they have spent a lot of time debating and it seems that they will not reach any agreement. Then being like that, the vote begins, and on the other side we observe Eugene contemplating the walls of the place, since he had never been there. And suddenly the teacher of the White Tower arrives, and she tells him that they finished talking and that they had to make a vote, and that the vote culminated having 5 voters in favor of him staying in a Korean and other 2 were not in favor, while there was 1 who remained neutral. So now Eugene belongs to a Korean. But he seems not to get excited at all and leaves the place. But the girl tells him to stop for a moment and asks him about his sword, which she needs to make a contract with the spirit to which the sword belongs. But Eugene refuses to present it since he assures that it is not his and that he has borrowed it. But she keeps persuading Eugene to lend her the sword. However, Eugene still maintains her position, and they arrive at an elevator because Eugene is going to the 12th floor where Sienna's books are, which is his main objective. But the teacher will not accompany him anymore, so he wishes her to have fun. And when he arrives, someone welcomes him and it seems that it is Sienna herself. Right away she tells him that she is not Sienna. She is a spirit in charge of running Sienna's salon. and Eugene asks her what her name is, and she answers that Sienna named her Mer so she can call her that. She also explains to Eugene that she was her with Sienna's spirit as a base, and that she doesn't have a soul like humans do, and that her body and consciousness were made with magic. And then she shows him Sienna's spell and that it was what she was working on for most of her life. And that's where all her texts are. They're not even in books. So Eugene goes a little closer to check while he asks Mer if he knows why Sienna retired. But Mer says he doesn't know anything. He just says that Sienna's retirement was very sudden. And Mer asks him if he's really interested in Sienna, and he says he's totally interested. And Mer says that it's not surprising if it wasn't for the fact that he is a Lionheart, and that's definitely weird. But Eugene changes the subject by asking if Sienna ever talked about her partners, and she told him about the things that Sienna talked about her partners. Eugene also asks her about that picture of Sienna that's there, but Mer tells her that even though it's her, the smile they painted is fake, because Sienna never smiled for the pictures, and she gets a little sad, but Eugene tries to comfort her. But Mer doesn't like that and tells her not to cross the line. And Raptio changes the subject and tells her that Sienna's living room doesn't have only that. It also has the equipment she used to use, and he dies to the Acacia staff, which is the most powerful in the world. And there Eugene tells us that Sienna got that staff because it was given to her by the elves, who were the ones who raised her and taught her elven magic, and that the gem in the center of the staff is a dragon heart, and that there are only 2 magic staffs in the world that use a dragon heart, and they are Sienna's and Blood Mary's, and that it used to belong to a lich named Belial, and it was Belial who in his past life killed Eugene. So he tells Mer that she can touch it, and she agrees but warns him that she cannot use magic with it, since the staff recognizes Sienna as its only owner, and that after she retired many wizards tried to become its owner but the staff did not recognize any of them. Then Eugene tries to fill it with her mana but she can't, because what Mer said was true. So Mer goes to look for a book that she says Eugene will surely like. And the book is called Adventures of the Warrior Vermouth, and there Sienna tells all the adventures she lived with Vermouth, and she also tells him to follow her because she has something else to show him. And when they arrive to the place, Eugene is completely amazed. It's about magical sculptures made with the memories of Sienna, who are her companions, and they are Vermouth, Anis, Moron, and Hamel. And after this Eugene asks Mer about what is in the upper floor of the library, and Mer answers that there are research notes, but that understanding those books would be too complicated for Eugene, and that she should understand first how witchcraft works. Then Eugene starts to think about how to materialize the sorcery with the consciousness, but Mer was talking to her about some other things, but Eugene didn't understand anything of what she said. But this doesn't surprise Mer, because so far no magician has been able to understand the magic of Sienna. So Mer tells her that in order to understand it she only has to close her eyes and open her hand and pour mana in the sphere where the texts of Sienna are. So Eugene does what Mer tells him, and ends up going into what he calls a sleep paralysis. And then he appears in a sea of mana, which throws him upwards, and suddenly he comes out of that trance, and asks Mer if he did something wrong. And she answers him that the only fact that he faints immediately is considered wrong, but that he lasted inside the witchcraft for 2 hours. And he asks Eugene how was his stay inside Sienna's witchcraft, and he answers that the only thing he saw were many circles. Then Mer explains to him about everything that happens and that the great secret of Sienna's witchcraft is in those circles, which in reality are 9. And just when they were talking, the Master of the Red Tower and the Master of the White Tower arrive. They ask him about how he was reading the texts found in Akrian, and Eugene answers that he realized that with the knowledge he has, understanding the books will take him a long time. So the teacher takes advantage of the situation to insist again that he lend her the sword. But Eugene this time thinks about it a little, and tells the girl that she has something else to offer, and she offers him a cane. But the Master of the Red Tower intervenes and tells Eugene that he has many canes and that he can lend them to her at any moment. But Eugene tells him that he doesn't want a cane. But the teacher continues to insist because for her it is like a dream, to make a contract with the spirit to which she belongs. And the Red Tower Master intervenes again, saying that if he wants something valuable, the teacher has something very valuable. But the girl tries to shut him up so that he doesn't continue talking. Even so, the Master of the Red Tower talks about a dark cloak that the girl has, and Eugene seems to be quite interested in the cloak, so he asks her about it. But she tries to evade him by telling him that it is only a cloak and that it is used so that it doesn't get cold. And the Master intervenes again, saying that the cape contains the highest level of magic of the space-time type, and that it can act as a shield, since it repels attacks. And also the cape serves as a storage that can store all the magic weapons that he wants to keep there and use them whenever he wants. And Eugene says that she is interested in that cloak, but the girl refuses to accept the deal. So Eugene says that it's a pity and that she'd better go to dinner then. So she invites the Master of the Red Tower to eat, and while these two talk about food, the girl, after thinking about it and thinking about it, tells him that it's okay but that it will only be borrowed. Even so, Eugene tells her not to sing victory yet because he will have to consult the true owner of the sword, and this makes the woman hysterical. But the fact is that they go in search of the owner of the sword, who is the patriarch's younger brother, and his name is Gyeom, who joined the Legion of Knights of the Black Lion. And the difference between the Black Lion and the White Lion is that the White Lion Knights only serve the royal family, while the Black Lion Knights obey any Lionheart. But Eugene doesn't really know how strong they can be, and at that moment a carriage arrives to pick them up, and inside there are two people. The teacher of the White Tower says that it is a very pretentious entrance, because she claims that she doesn't like the Lionheart family very much. But the teacher of the Red Tower suggests that she shouldn't show that dislike if she really wants to borrow the sword. Then when the carriage arrives, a girl gets off, and Eugene knows her immediately, because she is Seal, and more characters get off. But the most peculiar is the last one, which is a girl who seems to be of very high rank, and who is a melee fighter, and her name is Carmen, also from the Lionheart family, and Eugene's great aunt. But the master of the Red Tower tells everyone that they better talk inside about the deal that the master and Eugene are about to close, which is that for every day that the woman has the sword, then Eugene will have the cape for a year, and in case the sword is destroyed, then she will have to pay with her life. And the mistress of the White Tower asks why, and Carmen answers that the sword is a treasure for the family and that they are not very willing to risk it for money, and that if they do not like the conditions, then they should not take the sword and leave the discussion there. Carmen tells her to decide quickly since she has to go to interrogate the magician who was with Lode the day of the incident. Then the girl thinks about how long it will take with the sword, and after evaluating the time, she finally accepts the deal. And when it's all over, Carmen tells her that it's a nice cloak and that she really likes its fur. So Eugene assumes that she means she wants to try it on, since she didn't tell her directly, but it's to be expected. Then Carmen tries the cloak and without hesitation says that it's nice. And after that, Eugene and Seal go shopping. And while they walk, Eugene asks her about Cyan, and she answers that she talks about Eugene all the time. And she also wants to know how much Eugene has advanced in terms of power. So Eugene also asks Seal if she heard about Lode's case, and she answers that the only thing she knows is that he is in his house and that they put a private tutor to teach him magic. And on the other hand, Carmen is with Jevid, but despite all the tortures he didn't say anything, and besides that he lost his life. But Balzac is also in the place. He tells Carmen not to try to blame him, but Carmen answers that it is not wrong to suspect a dark magician, but he doesn't have enough evidence to make conclusions. But Balzac talks about his respect for the Lionheart family, and that is why he cooperated with them to solve the matter. He understands that all this inconvenience has been a disaster even for the Lionheart family. Then Carmen asks Balzac about the incubus with whom Lode had planned to make a contract, and Balzac removes the head of the incubus because he had already fulfilled his promise to kill him. In any case, Carmen and the others leave the place, and they begin to take more theories to get to the end of that matter. Besides, he talks about the fact that some men of the Black Lion are going to the place where Lode is, and that they will not arrest him because he belongs to the royal family, but that he will be strongly guarded, because if there is someone behind all that matter, he will surely try to get in touch with the royal family. And so time goes by until they leave, and seconds before Carmen gets on the carriage, she offers Eugene to join the Knights of the Black Lion. But Eugene rejects the offer. Meanwhile, the master of the White Tower is trying to contact the spirit that lives in the sword. This is taking more work than she expected, but suddenly the Thunder Spirit appears, telling the magician that the Wind Spirit is not interested in making contracts with her, but she refuses to stop. So the Lightning Spirit takes drastic measures with her. After 10 days, the woman goes to Eugene, and her appearance is very unfavorable. In any case, she gives her the sword even knowing that Eugene will have her cloak for 9 years. 9 because Eugene was kind and discounted him a year, and he continues reading a book. But after this, he asks Mer if Sienna was the one who wrote it, and she tells him that undoubtedly. So Eugene leaves aside the reading and goes again to see the nucleus of witchcraft, because he wants to try to enter again. And when he is inside, he notices that he no longer has the same horrible feeling, and at least he can understand the movement of the circles inside Sienna's witchcraft. 2 years have passed and Eugene is still working and studying about Sienna's witchcraft, while Mer observes and gets impatient because Eugene studies with a lot of tranquility and patience. But he assures her that he doesn't want to make a single mistake, and that's why he takes so long writing, because he wants his thesis to be perfect. And he also notices that Mer doesn't want Eugene to leave the library because basically he has been her only company since 2 years ago when he arrived. So he asks her if she is angry that he will be leaving soon, and she says why should she be? And he tells her that Sienna would have acted the same way, since Mer was made with Sienna's essence when she was young. But Mer tells him not to talk as if he knows Sienna. Then Eugene tells him that soon her thesis will be ready and that when that happens he will come back to see her and tell her something. but that he will only tell her when the time is right. So he proceeds to say goodbye and leaves Mer completely in doubt. And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a third part, comment below with the word boy. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.